Hi, it's Jason here at Fraser Valley Rose Farm. I'm here with the final video in my month-by-month rose care series, this one for the month of September. Now that final video sounds rather ominous, and of course I'm not planning to go away, but we are rolling over to the point where I already have a video for October. So my plan going forward is that I'm going to summarize those videos in a short post and video that comes out on Facebook and on YouTube at the beginning of each month. If you're not subscribed to Facebook or follow me on Facebook, and you're not subscribed to the channel, I'd advise you to do that now so that you are more likely to see those month-by-month discussions as they come up. And I won't remake the whole video, but I will focus in on some of the topics on a seasonal basis, so I'll still give you plenty of value that way. So it's September now, and in my northern temperate climate, we are heading into autumn, shorter days and colder temperatures within the next 2 months. Usually we have sub-freezing temperatures in November, and the roses don't seem to know it yet. Here they are happily blooming away. I'll give you some pictures from around the garden as well of other roses that are blooming. And this is a point I often make, is that repeat flowering roses have no common sense. They're relying on you for their cues on when to grow. And of course, if it's still warm enough, they'll keep going. We have encouraged that by feeding and pruning and doing things throughout the season. Now's the time to add some discouragement. So I would stop deadheading at this point. I'm going to stop pruning at this point. I'm going to stop feeding them at this point, trying to get them ready for winter. This beauty here is called Liv Tyler, and if you look at the whole rose here, you can see how many nice blooms there are on there, and even fresh buds coming up right now. All of this is a sign that I did a nice job in the months of July and August trying to encourage this to keep on blooming and give me this final beautiful show of the season. But I don't want to press my luck. Looking a little further back on the same shrub, just a different stem, you can see that there are tons of spent flowers on there, and they're starting to develop hips. Now if I were to reach in there now and start nipping those off, pulling those off to deadhead them, what will happen is it will encourage fresh red new growth right now. And the timing of deadheading is that typically you will get flowering again in the range of 6 to 8 weeks. Now we're here in the second week of September. When does that place the blooms? November? The plant just will not have enough energy by that point, and the fact that it keeps on throwing up these fresh red shoots trying to grow and support those new blooms means vulnerable, fresh, soft growth going into the winter. We'd rather leave these hips on there to signal to the plant to put its energy into ripening up for the seeds and stopping its production for the season. Similar thing can be said for fertilizer, and of course I do spend most of my season looking for this dark green foliage, beautiful red or purple new growth. But at this point, if I started to see that the new growth was getting a little bit paler, sort of softening out and running out of nitrogen, that would not be a bad thing. I really don't want to see soft, lush new growth going into November because that's just too vulnerable to the cold. Okay, so I'm discouraging some pruning, and I can almost hear you asking, but what if my rose really needs some pruning? And let's look at the condition of this rose. It's actually a good example. It's got some beautiful blooms still in bloom right now. It has some flushes that just finished. Overall, I'd say it's in relatively good condition or a good stage for coming into winter, but it does have some awkward growth up here and notably down here as well. And yes, any kind of pruning that I do right now will unfortunately encourage some new growth, so I want to minimize it as much as I can. What I will do is I'll make the call on this one here because it's already kind of broken down and it's going to get in the way of lawn mowing. It's a problem in the landscape. I'm going to go ahead and cut that one and get that out of the way. But these ones up here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to bookmark them. I'm going to hold off on these ones here and just, remember where they are and say, okay, this is going to continue its growth. It's going to slow down. I want it to slow down naturally, and then I can revisit this before storm season. So if I go into November, December, after I've had a touch of cold and before the harsh winds come in, then I can come and bring this back down to a healthier shape. Or on a climber, you may consider supporting it and taking it through the winter that way. Either way, pruning right now, to be avoided if you can. One activity I do love for September is planting new roses. This is our rose test garden, and this is an area where we test out cuttings that we've achieved usually through trading, and we put them in the garden and see how they do and how they perform and how people react to them. And so this one here, the one that I'm putting into the ground, is General Jacqueminot, or General Jack as you might say in English, and it is an influential or historic hybrid perpetual, one of the early reds that's been used in the breeding for a lot of modern red roses. Deserves a spot in the garden as far as I'm concerned. Now, as I dig this into the ground, maybe the debate or the question that might come up is whether I should have done this in the spring. And the answer is, of course, that if I have the rose ready and grown and ready to go into the garden early in spring, I'm happy to do that. This one just wasn't ready for that. So fall is a nice second window for that. And really the debate isn't the point of spring or fall, it's that this plant is in a pot, and if I try to overwinter it in a pot, it has certain risks. Overwinter it in the ground is marginally safer, and so I would choose in the ground over overwintering in the pot most times. And September is cool enough, but still has enough soil warmth that it has probably 6 or 8 or maybe even 10 weeks of root growth to establish before it goes into sub-freezing temperatures. And even then I have the option to cover it over with a pot so that I can shield the crown from cold temperatures should they arise in the landscape. And quickly reviewing what I generally say about planting is I don't have a whole bunch of organic matter or organic amendments standing by to throw into this planting hole. I'm basically just digging something that's large enough to take the entirety of the root ball as it exists right now, basically the same size as the pot, dig that out, and then more or less just put it straight in. If I felt like the roots were tangled badly, I would probably break them up a little bit. Here, it's not too bad, but it is nicely rooted to the bottom and sides of the pot. So I'm gonna go ahead and put that in the planting hole. Crown depth is about soil level, and then I'm gonna break it up around the outside here and backfill it and give that a nice tamped in kind of soil pressure around it so that the soil is about the same firmness in the planting hole as it is in the surrounding soil and doesn't become kind of a sink for any moisture, and that there's good contact between the soil and the roots. Into the section on watering, and there are 3 reasons why I'm watering my roses less these days. One of which is that I'm just sick of being attached to the end of a hose, so my personal effort level has gone down. But the 2 more valid reasons, one of which is that the day length is way down. We have much shorter days now than we did in the peak of summer, and so there's just less demand on the water supply on the roses. And the third thing I say is that we're also expecting less of our roses because you're not trying to encourage that strong growth or that flowering. If you've stopped deadheading and you're not asking the roses to go back into flower, then you don't have to worry about supplying enough moisture for that strong growth and for those large flowers again. So for those reasons, my watering now is down by probably about 50% from where it was at the peak of the season, and it probably will continue to slide into dormancy of the plants. In my section on pests and disease, here's one I haven't featured before. This is called rust. I'll give you a close-up of the foliage here. It kind of looks like it might sound for a disease called rust. It has rusty, orange-looking patches underneath the leaves, yellow dots on the tops of the leaves. It's a foliar disease, pretty similar in terms of its treatment anyway, with powdery mildew and black spot. What that would involve is the removal of infected foliage and around the base of the plant as well. Get rid of what you see the rust on, and a spray with sulfur-based disinfectants, or fungicides like wettable sulfur or lime sulfur, preferably before you see any major signs of the rust on the plant. It should also be said that this is much more common in more humid climates like the deep south, where you have that high humidity levels. Rust can come on, and some varieties are far more susceptible than others. So if you're in a climate that gets it, it is worth looking for rust-resistant varieties. For the section on the video on propagating roses by cuttings, we're getting a little bit late in the season. I put out a video recently where I talked about propagation timelines, and what I said there is you should have about 12 weeks of time between cutting and when you want to overwinter, and of course we're getting tight on that time right now. So if I find something in the garden, a variety that I want to have cuttings of, but I missed it earlier in the season, high priority, I can take those cuttings now and same process as I would do earlier in the year, just cut it below a node, strip those down, give it some rooting hormone, and put it under that humidity dome, just like I would do any other time of year. But what I know is I don't have enough time to root it all the way through. So if I do root it, I'm going to have to overwinter it inside the house instead of out in the greenhouse in the weather like other roses. So it kind of puts it in that awkward stage where we're kind of a bit late for semi-hardwood cuttings, but still a bit early for fully hardwood cuttings that you take kind of midwinter. So it's still worth doing for experience, or if there's a variety that you really want, but it's a bit late for the main portion of our propagation. I like to finish out these videos with a spotlight on a rose that looks particularly good in the garden. This one is called Lovely Fairy, and it sure fits the bill. It's a sport of the old standard polyantha, the Fairy, which is a lighter pink. This is a darker pink and very impressive. Now, I love to highlight it because it looks good today, but honestly, it looks good in September. It also looks good in June, July, and August because it just keeps on coming through these flushes of blooms. And as you can see, I'll give you a close up here, these are just coming into bud now. So it looks like it'll be strong into September, probably even October, just pushing new flushes without much prompting from me. I may have given a light trim of some of the spent stems as they go around, but it's very easy deadheading because you're just taking off a full spent stem instead of one by one picking off the flowers. So as far as garden performance goes, this is a good one. And like I say, when it's just when you see something that looks a little bit spent like this here, you just clip it off and throw it away, and it pushes it back into bloom. All right, that's it for today. I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any questions, please drop those down into the comments below the video, and I'll see what I can do to help.